live. Welcome to the Cristopolis show. This is the first episode. I'm here with my boy Mark One.
Yo, how's it going?
And we're gonna talk hip hop, we're gonna talk shop, we're gonna talk top 5 that are alive. Maybe some intros.
Yeah. So yeah, man, who are you?
So I'm Cristopolis. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm from the DC area, from the DMV. I've had a 20-year career in music, 20 albums deep. Recently moved out to Los Angeles. Owner and founder of Creative Society. It's a content creation studio in the Arts District in Los Angeles. We are here recording live at Creative Society. And, you know, this concept I have for the Cristopolis show is people that I've met, you know, throughout my career in music, throughout my career as a creative, in Latin America, on the East Coast, and now on the West Coast, how to give people a platform and how to talk about all the stuff that, you know, I find interesting and all the interesting people that I meet. You know, everything from hip hop to, we were just talking about polo culture, Bitcoin, geopolitics, what it is being Latino in America, you know, everything, right? Those types of things that are fascinating to me. I think it's fascinating to a lot of people. And so that's the purpose of this platform and things that I'm going to be covering. We got Mark here, and Mark, if you'll tell the people a little bit about yourself.
I'm just someone from LA, man, born and raised Venice for until I was 8. I moved to South Central and been there since my whole life, man. I'm a creative myself, man. I do photography, I do videography. I learned it from the church, man, what I was going to as a kid. I picked that up, and then obviously I got into the scene of the skating scene and the graffiti scene, and that's how, you know, we got into the whole hip hop, you know, just to say what we mentioned earlier, we'll touch on that. But that's where I come from, man. I'm just a normal kid from LA, and just with a bunch of creative ideas and just trying to get it out there and help people, you know what I mean, and help people to get their ideas more fine-tuned, and you know,
yeah,
that's really it.
Shout out to Fearless Church. We met at Fearless Church,
yes,
here in LA. Mark and I had an instant connection because we're both hip hop heads. What was interesting to me, at least, being from the East Coast, was that when I talked to him, his knowledge of the East Coast sound, that 90s boom bap, sample bass, chopped sample sound that I love personally, he knew about. He was an aficionado. Now, growing up, I listened to a lot of LA rappers, right? I'm from an era before the East Coast had that big comeback, I would say, right? So I'm from a time period where when NWA came out, right? When Eazy-E was out, and then when they split, and the incredible journey that Ice Cube had, right? Yeah. And then the Dre albums, and then Snoop. So that whole kind of timeline happens before and then concurrently with the Wu-Tang Clan, Mobb Deep, and then later on Biggie, right? So, but it starts, you know, if you go even further back, it starts in the East, obviously, right? So I had influences there, but when I became fanatical about hip hop, it was Eazy-E, NWA, Ice Cube, then Dre. But then the East came with what people refer to as the golden era, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of, you know, my love also for the influences of the West Coast on hip hop, and but I'm from the East Coast, you know, and we're gonna talk.
East Coast.
Yeah, we're gonna talk top 5. So we wanted to talk about the parameters a little bit, right? So this could go so many ways. This is a fun topic in a lot of ways. It's like a game that a lot of hip hop heads play. where, top 5 Dead or Alive essentially is, who are your top 5 MCs of all time, alive or that have passed, in the whole genre of hip hop? And it doesn't include, and this is what we talked about a little bit earlier, this will not include groups.
Groups, producers,
DJs.
You can't forget about them.
Right. So what we're going to talk about now will not include hip hop groups. Yeah. Producers, DJs, and I would say influencers.
Of course.
Right? Because there's people that have had, people like Kanye West, that have had such an impact on hip hop.
Of course.
But they may not be in your top 5. That's a different category.
Of course.
Right?
Oh, you meet some people mad right now.
I didn't say he wasn't in my top 5.
I'm just saying, someone's going to get offended for not having Kanye at the top 5.
So yes, I think that those are am I missing any parameters as to like what we're going to cover?
I don't think so. I think that's mainly it for right now for this episode.
Yeah, for this episode. That's exactly right. Yeah. And then the other thing that I think is important to mention is that we talked about mentioning the honorable mentions first, because it's so hard to like narrow the entire history of hip hop down to 5 artists, each, and there may be overlap, right? Yeah. So he has his 5, I have my 5. We haven't seen our 5. We don't know what our 5 are, and it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to narrow it down. Top 10's easier, but the game is top 5. Because it makes it hard. You got to cut people out that are top tier.
Yeah.
They're top tier. So what we agreed on was to talk a little bit about honorable mentions. People that are, at the top of the game, that have had an incredible impact, that we love, that we listen to, that are part of our life, that are part of the culture. But didn't make the top, or didn't make,
I'm gonna talk.
Yeah, it's a personal thing.
Personal thing.
So I don't know, man. You want to kick it off and maybe mention some of your honorable mentions, or we go like that.
So I'm gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna cycle back a little bit.
Yeah.
Just so I can give people some background, because we talking about music. You're an artist. I'm not an artist.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the West Coast. So as you were saying, the golden era. You're talking about NWA, you're talking about Eazy, you're talking Snoop, Cube, a lot of the West Coast artists. I got to mention, DJ Quick and Dub C in the Mad Circle, like
King T.
Yeah, King T. You got to mention those people. So I grew up in that household. I was mentioning to him before, where it's like I grew up in a very diverse music household, where like my grandfather was the first one, where it's like I'm hearing classical, I'm hearing jazz. My mom would play gospel. My uncles would play a lot of West Coast gang culture like music, and then from there, my uncles kind of grew their wings and then grew and went into other different platforms of music. Mm-hmm. So that's when I got introduced to heavy metal, punk, rock, death metal, the whole 9 of that spectrum in that world. And then, goes back to my other uncle listening to, DITC, like people that were underground and from the East Coast. So I kind of grew up in a good household of just a melting pot of just music and a bunch of flavors, And then it goes to the people that I hanged around with too. It was always about who knew artists that no one was out. I think my group of friends, we all know that we all love sharing artists with each other.
Yeah.
It's never been of I want to hoard it, I don't want to gatekeep. No. We're putting everybody on.
Yeah.
And just to give a little more background, we used to run this thing called Sunday Morning Sounds before.
Yeah.
And where that's what it's the whole premise of the show was just, shout out to them, Sunday Morning Sounds. Where we put new artists out, because, I have a lot of old heads and new heads too to the game, where they're like, there is no such thing as good rap music.
Yeah.
And I think that's false.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great artists out here that are not in the limelight. You can only hear Future so much. You can only hear Kanye so much. You can only hear so many of the repetitive sounds.
Right.
So I want to hear something new. And then that was our job was to look for those people and put it on there for everybody else to hear. Because that's the whole point, man. I don't want to say that hip hop is that it never died.
Nah.
It just only evolved.
Yeah.
The thing is that when it evolved, everybody was still so stuck on that sound that it was kind of weird, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, even for one, I'll mention it just because you can see it with Kendrick.
Yeah.
You know? Section 80. You know what I mean? Like, that was such a great album. And then you hear To Pimp a Butterfly, a totally different album.
Yeah.
And then you go from that to what's the Untitled album, then to Morale and the Big Steppers. Like, the evolution of his sound grew, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, bring old Kendrick back. I want to, you know, what's that one? Average Joe. That was one of them. I forgot the name of that one. ROTC. Like, you know, like all that sounds, but it never that's as an artist, you constantly grow. We never stay in the same sound. I mean, because if we was, then, you know, we wouldn't go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, we wouldn't grow as an artist. We wouldn't get new fans, you know. But then also, too, as an artist, you want to be creative. You don't want to have the same sound.
He's such
as
an amazing creative, too.
Of course. So,
because his shows visually and what he does with step and what he does on the stage is it lyrically. I mean, he won the what's that joint called? It's like the Pulitzer Prize. It's like he won like the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
I think he's the first hip hop artist ever to win a Pulitzer Prize. That's next level. But not only lyrically is he like that, his live show is spectacular. Yeah, he's spectacular. I'm glad that you mentioned your podcast. Can people still find that?
Yeah, they still can. We kind of took a little hiatus right now. We're all both just, you know, the partner that I was with right now, I think he's still in Virginia right now, so I don't fully know if he's back out in
I'm
LA,
a Virginia boy.
So, you know, shout out to them, shout out to the VA. But yeah, so like we kind of took a hiatus right now. We're gonna come back soon. We gotta refresh everything, you know, we gotta collab again, you know, we kind of just, you know, work happened and, you know, life happens basically.
For people who want to like look it up, who love your flavor and are interested in your taste, you as a tastemaker, where can they find episodes of your music podcast?
YouTube, man. YouTube. YouTube. Everything is still there.
Yeah.
It's under Sunday Morning Sounds.
All right.
The host is Dan Quay. I was just there.
Yeah.
Editor, you know, director.
Yeah. I saw some of the visuals. The visuals were amazing, and in large part, that's what really inspired me to do this collab right now.
Thank you.
Because I love your music taste. I think you know, like you're cool. You know what I'm saying? So like, I wanted to bring you on here.
Thank you.
So yeah, I love how you talked about like your household growing up, you know, and like all of the musical influences you had, because I had something like that too. You know, like my mom's from Guatemala, and you know she listened to cumbia, right, and salsa, and but then, you know, like 70s and 80s music, you know, but there was always music on at my house. My dad's from Chile, but I didn't grow up with my dad, so I didn't really like grow up around him playing music. But when I'd go to his spot on the weekends and I'd go to the Chilean parties, they were turning up, you know, and it was Latin music, you know. Right now, Chile has a big hip hop scene and a big reggaeton scene. They're not really that well known for music in general, but they get down. Yeah. So you know, so they're cranking whatever is top music in the Latin American world. So that's the household I grew up in. But being that I grew up in the DC area, you know, there was a lot of hip hop, but there was a lot of go-go, and go-go is a DC sound. That's, you know, like if you've never heard go-go, it's hard to describe it. It's like funk with a lot of percussion, a lot of bongos and congos. Okay. And it has a really unique, distinct sound that it's a very live music. Like you can get it in recording, but there's not that many like major record label go-go albums, I would say. People, you know, back in the day would pass tapes, right? So the go-go would, you know, be at a spot and people would record it, and then you'd have the tape from that show. right? And then, as technology evolved, the mediums evolved, but you would have a recording of that show, at this spot in DC and then they had the different bands. And, not just anybody would go. I mean, they were tough. They were like,
Oh, yeah, you had to be
this
somebody.
you had to be somebody. You had to have your crew with you. And that's a DC sound. And, all of that is my musical background. So growing up in the 80s and in the 90s, being from the East Coast, being from the DMV, which has like that go-go and R&B influence, and then being Latino, and all of that coming in has shaped my musical taste, So I'm glad that you mentioned that and that you shared that. How about some honorable mentions, bro? You want to go first?
Yeah.
All right. So these are so honorable. This is what we agreed on, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what we agreed is top 5 that are alive. Folks are gonna be like, all right, these are my top 5. But it's always very difficult because there's so many amazing artists out there. So the honorable mentions are people that didn't quite make the top 5, but that are amazing.
Yeah.
Right. They're amazing, and they're in your this person could have. I was on the fence, but they didn't make the top 5.
Yeah.
But they have amazing music. I love them artistically. And maybe if this album was a little better, they would have been on my top 5 or something like that, right?
Of course.
So I think we'll maybe go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah. Man, so I mean, for me, it was the critique about top 5. At least how I put it in my mind was, who did I listen to a lot growing up?
Yeah.
Like, who really molded my lifestyle for my top 5 before we even get on that?
Yeah.
So I used that same concept to really dictate who my honorable mentions were.
Mm-hmm.
So for sure, I'll start with one. I think I want to go one each.
Yeah.
For me, it's Big Pun.
Yeah.
Big Pun, bro. I can't. Capital Punishment. I still got it on CD. I got it on tape. It's in the car. It never leaves there. I know I'm still using a CD player, but you know what I mean. I want that '90s vibe, man. I want the '90s vibe.
I love albums. I love
so,
albums. Yeah.
For me, without a doubt, it's just like he's there.
Yeah.
He's there. The lyricism, the way he was able to really kind of push that boundary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On the East Coast rap. And then when you hear Capital Punishment, it was so much flavors, but it was aggressive flavors,
Yeah.
So I like that. I
Yeah.
like that where he was able to just go on and then do.
Big Pun, that one track on Capital Punishment, Big Pun with Black Thought.
Yeah.
Yo, that song is so crazy.
That was wild.
And Black Thought now, especially because of the late night show he's on, and what the Roots have been able to do, he's better known now. But that showed back then how Big Pun was a student of the culture.
Of course.
He didn't go and get a featuring.
No.
He could have got any featuring, right? He got a featuring of an artist he respected.
Of course.
And they went back and forth, right?
And that's what I loved about him.
Yeah.
Is that he always collabed with people that he liked, and he just dominated it.
Yeah.
And what I like too is that he could do the ghetto stuff.
Yeah.
But if he want to get real with you, he can.
Yeah.
And he could do it in such a way that it's like, oh my God, it's crazy.
So in my honorable mentions, I got Big Pun.
That's what's up.
I got Big Pun also.
This is how you know. This is how you know.
I got Big Pun also. As a Latino artist, as a Latino recording artist who does rap, I've always been too Latin for hip hop and too hip hop for Latin, right? So, and I always loved MCs like Big Pun that completely bridged. It was he was at such another level that it didn't matter if he was purple. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I always loved him. I think that his Capital Punishment album is a classic album. It is a classic album. The album that came after that one wasn't as strong, and then unfortunately he passed.
Of course.
Right? God bless Big Pun and rest in peace.
Shout out to his family too.
And shout out to his family and to Chris Rivers, his son, who's a rapper also. Big Pun's this close from being in my top 5. And I think that if that album that came after Capital Punishment was maybe just a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
Just a little teeny bit tighter, you know?
We may have to do another top 5 for East Coast and West Coast. Because even then, like, I started writing down originally who my top 5 was.
Yeah,
It's all East Coast.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and I was like, hold on, I gotta retract.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I don't, yeah. So, all right. So talking about East Coast, West Coast, in my honorable mentions, which also could have been a top 5, is Ice Cube. And I remember an era that I feel in a lot of ways is kind of forgotten because everybody knows his impact on cinema.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
The Friday and then the Fridays, Barbershop, Beauty Shop, which he is an executive producer of, which is a spinoff, from Barbershop. And then all the other movies he's done. I'm just naming kind of like, like the ones that were like had multiple. So just in movie culture, cinema, and in West Coast culture, hip hop culture, Ice Cube has had such an impact. But before that, I remember when Straight Outta Compton came out, and he was the nicest of the nicest group. Like NWA, like nobody was doing hip hop like that. I mean, come on, Dr. Dre was the producer.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. So everything sounded amazing. Nobody had ever done or said what they were doing. And amongst, titans of hip hop, he was the best. And then he walked away from it all. And it was supposed to be game over. And he got, in a sense, a little bit kind of like blacklisted, right? He lost his industry connects. Yeah. He's from LA. A lot of doors closed for him. And he went and hooked up with brothers on the East Coast. And his first album has that Bomb Squad sound. Shows that he is the man behind the pen. And then you have, so that's America's Most Wanted. Of course. And then you have Death Certificate.
That one.
Right?
The classic song. You can't avoid that one where he disses NWA all the way through.
He takes on the whole group.
Yeah.
And wins. And wins.
Yep. I think that one.
No Vaseline.
Yeah.
No Vaseline.
Top diss record. I'm sorry. No one could top that.
Yeah.
No one could top that. Yeah. He was so disrespectful. Don't get me wrong, though. You could say a lot of wild stuff back then. You can't say a lot of wild stuff.
You can't.
Now you can't because you get canceled.
Yeah.
But it showed how aggressive he was and how dangerous he could be.
Like, and how nice he was. And how nice he was with the pen.
And then not even that, but to be on a classic beat. That sampled beat off of that one.
Yeah.
You can't. He did it so much justice on the beat. Yeah. And his delivery was crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm on the same boat with Ice Cube. He's one of the top.
He's one of your honorable
mentions. And it's like, for him, all the way up until Laugh Now, Cry Later, that was like, I think third or fourth album before he stopped. I loved it. Anything back then, I love it. But it's like anything before that, after that, it was kind of like, it was kind of falling off. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like he said, he really dipped into cinema. Yeah. And for me, I kind of lost respect when he did Are We There Yet? That
movie, the kid movie.
Yeah, I kind of was like, I know Ice Cube was saying disrespectful stuff back then.
Right.
And now he's talking about having a family, and I'm like, I know it's the growth. As a man, you grow. You know what I mean? You live childish things behind.
I mean, but I think Snoop's done Disney. Eddie Murphy's all in Disney now. So people graduate. They evolve.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So for me, that was just like that was a turning point for me because I was like, I knew you for this. Like, why would you go back and try to do this now? Like, I didn't understand at the time when I was young, listening to Cube. Yeah. And growing up listening to Cube, I was just like, I don't understand it. I was like, why would you do this? And then as I got older, I started realizing, yeah, you got to get the bag in multiple ways, and this is how we did it, and this is how he did it. And I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yo, he's not the only person, but to do like Q Vision, to do Friday, that's something that a lot of rappers want to do, but they can't.
He wrote it,
and he did it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
Got the funding for it, and then was like, all right, we're gonna make a movie about it.
He was the actor. He wrote it. He got the funding for it and made it classic. And now he's got like Mount Westmore.
Yeah.
With Too Short and E40 and Snoop, right?
Yes.
Right?
I believe. Yeah.
I haven't checked that out, but I think it's cool that he's still doing stuff.
Yeah, Big 3 too. He's still doing Big 3.
Yeah. That's the basketball?
Yeah, basketball 3.
Yeah. So shout out to Ice Cube. Definitely one of my honorable mentions. All right, so you go next, but then I'm gonna hit you with something that's like not as well known. That's honorable mention.
Okay. Man, it took some time to kind of really think about this one because it's like I said, the East Coast, West Coast, like is so much, but I think for this is a group, so this is where like
Yeah.
But Psycho Realm did a big thing. People Union, you know what I mean?
Are they from Pico Union?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they are
cool.
They're like about the gang culture. They talked about what it was to be
shout out
Latino.
Pico Union.
Shout out to the PU. If you know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like they were talking about gang culture, but they had a different sound. It wasn't like how it was just like I'm gonna knock 808s. Nah, they were sampling. I mean, don't get me wrong. They were close to proximity to Cypress Hills. They did a lot of stuff with DJ Muggs. If you know who Muggs is, you're a real one.
Yeah.
But they did a lot of music together, and their sound.
So they were like under
crazy.
the label of like Cypress Hill, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They got put on to them, and man, the sound that they delivered to me as 15 years old, I was like, my God, this is crazy. This is crazy. I've never heard anything like this. It felt like I was listening to something from the East Coast, but West Coast. Like they're talking about Burlington. They talk about People Union, the streets, and I'm like, I'm minutes away from here.
But that's Muggs sampling and chopping records and doing what Alchemist would later do.
Exactly.
Right? But Muggs kind of, Cypress Hill does it.
Yeah.
Right? But they had their own sound that Muggs developed that sound.
So it was something that was wild to me to get a feel of something what it's like West Coast and East Coast mashed up together.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it was beautiful. Like at that time, I was really into like people that were sampling.
Yeah.
Because it's so unique. Like I remember hearing old school music and being like, oh, that beat drum, I remember it from this song or this song,
Yeah.
So I had a love for it. So that's why Cycle Round, man, War Story 1, 2, and then they go on to do more work, you know what I mean? And then Sig Jack and doing his own projects, because Big Duke got shot.
Yeah.
At that time. So unfortunately, I only can imagine what would Big Duke sound now.
Yeah.
And
how many albums did they have out before Big Duke was no longer?
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had a big body of work.
Yeah, they had a good amount of work.
Yeah.
And it was what I liked about the work too. It was just, I don't know about you, but I have a higher appreciation is when I don't have to skip a track.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And they have music where I know all of it, like back to back, like that, of the whole tracks, and you're just sitting there, you're like rapping, and you're like, yeah, this is it, and then on to the next one, and then on to the next one, and you're just sitting there like, oh my God, like the best way to put it, if I could give a drop of gem for people, number one song, it's 2 songs, but if you see where I'm coming from, it's audio visual, but it's more of audio.
Yeah.
It's called La Conecta.
Okay.
Part 1 and 2. Go listen to it and tell me that the way they sounded, what they would sound now is crazy. If Duke was still being able to rap.
So this is Psycho Realm La Conecta.
Yeah.
1, and then Psycho Realm La Conecta
Part
2, and that's how people find it.
Yeah. So it's 2 tracks. It's back to back. I think it's on War Story 2, I believe, but don't quote me on that one. I know the people, they're gonna be like, oh my God, you don't know, you say you like it. I don't want to hear it. It's a lot of music in this mind.
Yeah, I really love the way that artists used to make like albums, and I really like how artists would like albums or even tracks sometimes would have like a little intro,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes they have an interlude, but the intro and the interlude wouldn't necessarily be its own song.
Nah.
They'd be kind of like at the end of a song,
Of course.
right?
Like it'll lead you into the song, and then at the end, it'll probably be the end of that interlude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like there'd be like maybe like an album with like 14 tracks on it, but there were really like 18 or 20 pieces of music, right? Because it'd be like a song, but it had like a little. Pete Rock used to do that a lot, where like the Pete Rock and CL Smooth albums, they'd have like the song would end. So the song that you knew from the music video or maybe from the radio, on the actual album, it would end and there was like a little 15-second like interlude, and then it would perfectly lead into the next song.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get to that interlude. You couldn't get to that little almost like hidden egg without listening to the album.
Yeah.
Right? So that I think that's kind of cool in this like Spotify era of like you just listen to songs.
Mm-hmm.
It's that art of the album has been lost a little bit, I think.
1000%.
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah.
And no one's. Yet again too. It's the new wave artists as well. You know, they don't. They're more. I feel like they're more concerned about making hits than putting a big body of work together. Because all of what it really sounds like to me sometimes is that some of these albums that drop from new artists, it just sounds like a compilation of music. It's not a body of work where it is dedicated to one thing, you know?
Yeah.
If you listen to, what's it called, my favorite Biggie album, Ready to Die.
Yeah.
Literally, the album was about literally dying. It was him talking about ready to commit suicide. Like, suicide thoughts is on there.
Yep.
But see, that's gone now. Like, albums, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there might be a couple out there that are still doing it, but as a big impact, yeah, this is kind of like...
It's like a lost art form.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a lost art form.
I get it. We move, we evolve, but at the end of it, for people that really enjoy hip hop and it means something to them, we have a special place in the heart for albums that do that for us.
Yeah.
And paint that real big picture versus on just giving me a compilation of music.
Yeah, that's right. Like albums now are more like a compilation. They're like compilations of like I recorded 30 songs. Here are the 10 best ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's a body of work in the sense that like I recorded them in the same period of time, but not like I put these together in a way that's like almost like a movie. You know, artists used to almost think like a movie. All right, so another honorable mention for me. I think maybe we do like 2-3 more honorable mentions. So this falls into maybe not as well known, and not on a lot of people's lists, but my choice of including this artist is like who I like to listen to, right? So like if I'm chilling, and I'm getting ready, and I put on music, there's a lot of artists that are like big name artists, and I don't really listen to them like that, But like I really like this artist as an artist. Like I like his vocal tone. I like how he rhymes. What I'll call the multisyllabic, right? Where there's rhymes within rhymes. And I'm talking about Terminology. Yeah. So Terminology is a rapper from Boston. Does a lot of work out of New York. He's from that crew that's like Static Selecta, and the East Coast cats, but even further north, right? And there's some big pun influence there. He's Puerto Rican, right? There's some big pun influence there in the way, especially his earlier work. His first, I think, big single was produced by Premier. He's a cat. The Terminology is a dude who's been, hip hop quotable in the Source and has like 40 projects. Type of dude that would release like 5 albums in a year, especially early on. Like really strong projects. Real kind of like mixtape culture artist, where he would have like a project, rap over somebody else's beat, maybe make his original stuff, do stuff collab with his team. But he's worked with everybody at the highest levels. You know, production by Prodigy. I think the song that he has that has like the most plays on like Spotify is the one he did with and his name, I'm forgetting his name, the dude who passed away, Mac Miller.
Mac Miller.
Yeah.
I have to dig.
Yeah, Mac Miller Terminology. Yeah. Really, really good. This is where like I need to have the drum where I can play like a snippet. But so I'm gonna put him as an honorable mention. He's not in one of my top 5, but I listen to him hard. And there was like a period of time, almost like when you discover an artist, and then that's like you're rocking with him for a while. I had this era with Terminology, like where like I followed him and like listened to everything he was doing, and yeah. So that's one of my ones. It's like not as known as much. Shout out to Terminology.
Word. I take that.
All right.
You dropped a gem on me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that one, but for sure.
I got another gem on my sleeve, but
Okay.
we'll keep that one on my sleeve.
Damn, this one's hard. Yet again, it's so hard to really kind of put everybody in that list, man. Because even now, like I'm still throwing in more people.
I know.
Like,
Me too. Right? Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give this person a shout out too. Right?
Yeah.
How it should be.
So it's hard. So it's like, man, like honorable mentions is such a vast list, but for sure, who had a good impact too, just as much as everyone that we probably mentioned right now.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it had to be Jay-Z, bro. Jay-Z, like.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that, like, I never liked Jay-Z.
Yeah.
I was just like, I was that cat that was like, Jay-Z's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, man, these kids from New York.
Too pop, like he was too pop at a point in time.
Yeah, I just didn't get it. And then until I dug back and I heard,
Reasonable Doubt.
Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah.
I was just like, I get it now. I just didn't dig. So for me, pound for pound, my favorite one, he did it with Stretch and Bobbito. It was a freestyle, him and Big L.
Oh,
and the way they go back and forth was just, I can't stress it, man. It was fire. It is fire. That freestyle. Please go listen to it. I forgot the name of it.
So Stretch and Bobbito.
Stretch and Bobbito is a freestyle with Big L and Jay-Z. Go look that up, and you cannot tell me that doesn't slap. And that version of Jay-Z.
That's a really good point because old school Jay-Z, when he rapped very intricately and very fast, and then he changed it up completely. Yeah.
Now he's telling you a story.
Yeah.
Like 444, that was a story.
Yeah.
That was a full story. But it also shows too that he was able to do it that way, and people still rock with him.
Yeah.
People still rock with him.
Yeah. I think like I like Jay-Z a lot and was really impressed by him in his documentary Fade to Black. And they should. So what's really cool about him is the way he records his songs. So he goes in and he kind of, first he writes really fast. And I've seen people do that before, and I'm not that dude, right? So like I'm not that guy. I'm not that dude. I mean, I'm fast. Like some people might think I'm fast in the sense that I could do a song in like a day. But these brothers put together classics.
Yeah.
Like
mere minutes.
Yeah.
Mere minutes.
Yeah, they're basically talking their life. And the street talk and their life combined with the talent of the engineer and the producer who made the beat come together to make something that is truly special, So what they capture in that documentary, Fade to Black, is how he gets in the studio and he'll listen to a track. Like he'll go through the labor is the selection, right? Yeah. So he's working with the best, right? So they'll show him and he's in there with like, Kanye West or Timberland. And he's going through beats. I mean, they're just playing them their best. And depending on what he needs for his album and his mood, and then he'll be like, hold up, that one, play that again. And then he does this thing where he's like talking to himself, right? And I live downtown LA, I see that all the time, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But he's like talking to himself. and then he'll go in, and he'll be like, all right, go. And he understands song structure in a way that is really special, where he'll just be like, and then he'll just jump in and know when to, like, he just can do it so well.
Yeah.
Just almost like a jazz musician, you know, with like doing a drum solo.
Of course.
Right? Or like a horn solo where they just riff. He riffs. But it's all here.
Yeah.
Because he's not freestyling.
Nope.
It's different from freestyle. Because there's very talented freestyle artists that'll just rap and they're like, you know, shout out Flex Matthews. Like whenever I think of like freestyle, and there's this cat from DC named Flex Matthews that like, I'm not sure how many albums he put out, but he would perform all the time, and his whole thing was he just go on the stage.
Yeah.
And they just you know, it'd be like a live band or something, and he'd be like he'd tell people like point at stuff, and he just go. Right?
That's a talent.
That is such a talent.
That's a talent.
And but what Jay does isn't that.
No.
You know? But what's interesting is that he's on so many people's top 5, but he's not in my top 5.
Yeah.
And he's not actually, I didn't have him. Yeah, I do have him as an honorable mention. I do have him. You can't not have him, I guess. I think his album Reasonable Doubt is such a classic. And The Blueprint, the first one. Right? Where he goes after Nas.
I totally forgot about that album. And then see like
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, that one was
Yeah.
crazy.
But then other than that, you know, that was like he's dope. There's nothing bad to say about him, but he's just not in my top 5.
So yeah.
Okay.
This
This
dude got
dude,
one up your sleeves.
I got him. There's this artist that I respect who's not a really he's well known. He's making a living as a musician. He has been making a living as a musician for a long time. But he's definitely like a rapper's rapper. He is definitely independent. He's the type of cat that like releases 4, maybe 5 projects a year, and he'll release it with limited edition vinyl, limited edition CD, limited edition tape, and then they sell out. Right? They sell out, and it's a short run. It's truly collector's items, and he's been doing well, and his level of being prolific, where he's just constantly putting out quality music, and for how long he's been doing it, because he's been doing this now for I think like 10 years, is this dude based out of Brooklyn named Napoleon the Legend. You ever heard of Napoleon the Legend?
He sounds familiar. But
Yeah.
I have to hear something.
Yeah. So shout out Napoleon the Legend. This dude is definitely in my honorable mention. I don't have him as one of the top 5 rappers of all time, but he's a young cat and he's still out there grinding, making a name for himself. So you don't know where his career is leading him, but he's 100% independent. And what's really interesting about this dude is that he's from the Francophone world, right? So where they speak French, and his family, I guess his family, I'm gonna say his family, is from a country that's not really well known named Comoros. Okay. Comoros, it's like an island off the coast of Africa. And so he, I believe, was born and lived for a period of time in France, in Paris. So he speaks French. Okay. Right? And then he moves to the DC area, right? And kind of grows up in that area. I don't know him from there, but that's his story. And then when he pursues music, he moves to Brooklyn in New York. And then he was out there for a period of time, and I heard about him like as a musician. Like I was working with a producer, and I actually had the experience of living in France for 6 months, and I did 2 albums in France with a French rap group named Le Chantecrime. I was really into French hip hop and all this stuff.
That's what's up.
Yeah, it's really cool because they're on like some boom bap, but it's like some French shit, right? So it's its own thing. And they're like, like Cause they like, you know how like Hollywood movies, and we in we in LA, we in Hollywood.
Yeah,
it's like happy ending, right?
Of course.
Nah, they shoot the brother in European movies. It's sad. It's like life is hard, right? And the hip hop comes out that way too. Like life is tough. It's tough. It's like it's not smiley faces, and so it's like it's grimy. It's like so he starts. So I have a real appreciation for French hip hop. I find out that this dude he speaks French, but he wasn't rapping in French. But he's so nice with it in English, and working, just consistently quality music. Whenever something drops of his, I check it out. Napoleon the Legend is who we're talking about, and he just released like this week or like in the last 7 days, his first all French album.
Oh,
and he's working with heavy hitters in France. So this is a real interesting dude, because he's like rapping. I rap a little bit in Spanish, right? But that's a little bit more common. There's so many Latinos in America. Reggaeton is so big, right?
Yeah.
So some reggaeton artists, they sing, but some rap, right? It's like Spanish hip hop is a thing. French hip hop is less known, especially by a dope MC from Brooklyn.
That's crazy.
Right? With that New York sound. So it's real cool. He's a very, very interesting artist. So his name's Napoleon the Legend. He's one of my honorable mentions in our top 5 that are alive.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, you want to get into it? Hold on. Do you have any other honorable mentions that you...
If I do, I'll spit them out quickly.
Yeah.
Let's do that because I want to get into this top 5.
All right. Let's go ahead.
For me, for sure, is MF Doom. He's a classic.
All right, so what are we doing? Are you doing your honorable mentions?
Just sounding off.
Yeah. All right, MF Doom.
Who's the other person name? I totally forgot. Large Professor. He's another one.
Yeah.
Can't get rid of it. Cannot mention him. You definitely got Dilated Peoples. You also got...
No, Dilated People from LA?
Yeah. LA Sound.
I love their first album.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Tasteful. And then has to be, Ghostface. And I think just to round it all off is 2 more, because I have it in the chamber right now.
Yeah.
Freddie Gibbs and Mac Miller. Those
Yeah.
are my last ones that I know that were like all...
Okay,
collective.
so you like Mac Miller like that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then that joint that I'm telling you with terminology, you're going to love that
Yeah.
track. Because Mac Miller goes off.
Oh, I know he does. He's doing a joint collab with Matt Lair.
Okay.
It was already made, but never came out.
Before he passed.
Yeah, this is before he passed. So now that he is passed, the state was like, gave Matt Lib the green light and was like, yo, fine tune it, drop it. So we're going to expect a
Matt Lib, Mac Miller
album.
What's it called when somebody's already passed? Posthumous. He's dead already.
Yeah,
God bless Mac Miller.
For real.
All right.
Yours. I'm signing him off.
All right. AZ.
Yes.
AZ. I love AZ. I love his cadence. I love the intricacy of his rhymes. I think he's so slept on. He's a Latino dude. He's Dominican.
He's nice.
Yeah, he's nice. He's nice with it. Lyrically, this dude he could be so nice, but sometimes he's like, I don't know, a little bit sloppy. But there's something about his swagger and his selection of music, and I'm just gonna say it again, his swagger that I love so much. Killer Cam.
Ooh.
That dude is so dope that he didn't even need to rap though. Like he's just I love his presence.
Yeah.
I love his whole vibe.
Come on, bro.
His whole vibe. And there's not that many artists that could do that for me,
Nah.
but he does. He does. He's an honorable mention. Big Daddy Kane.
You can't do it.
Big Daddy Kane.
You can't miss an OG like that.
All right, and I got 2 more. Because I got more, but I'm gonna say.
Oh, trust, we can sit here all day just going back and forth, but
Yeah.
Go to
Okay.
last
All
series.
right. Immortal Technique.
oh, classic.
Immortal Technique. So Immortal Technique is on my honorable mention before we get into the top 5 that are alive. And the last one is Big L.
Word.
Yeah. And Big L is interesting because he dropped his first album, and I used to listen to it, and it was cool. It was dope. He's a little dark. He's got some places where he gets a little bit too, kind of like little too 666 vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, I don't even. Why do you like? You're just so nice with the pen. Why do you have to be like, But he gets shot. So rest in peace, Big Al. And the album that came out after he passed, which was almost like a little bit like a compilation where it had like all of his, I think it was called Big Picture or something like that.
I think it was.
And wow. Like talk about somebody who like still had, his lyricism was spectacular. Next level.
I really wished him and Big released that album, man.
Yeah.
The talks of that album and it never happened. And I only can imagine what that would sound like.
Yeah. And I like Harlem Cats.
Bro, Harlem Cats get down.
I like their vibe.
They get down.
They're kind of like they're like their own thing.
And that's one thing I'll speak on it really quickly. I enjoy about the East Coast. Yeah. More than I do about West Coast music. Yeah. And it's not to,
No, we here, man. We in LA.
We're not shooting down LA. But at least at that time period. Yeah. East Coast, like, the sounds were crazy. You hear something from Queens, it's not sounding something from the Bronx. Yeah. You're not hearing something that's like, what's it called? Harlem and Brooklyn. Like, they all had just different sounds, but they all had rhymes. They all got busy. And what it was for me was that, like, hearing what they had to say, but the samples that they were rapping over. Yeah. Their sound was just different.
They had their own slang.
Yeah. And then, bro, at the end of the day, you're kind of taking a step back and you're like, it's all East Coast music, though. Yeah. And it's so diverse. Yeah. And it's just like, all rapping about the same thing. Yeah. But the way they painted that picture was just different because of what they saw in different neighborhoods. Yeah. And that's what blew my mind. Like, I was like, man, this is so interesting. Yeah. To see from a West Coast perspective. It's like, dude, it's beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was into graffiti for a long time. So it's like, that's the mecca of it. And then even seeing that evolve and seeing like how the hip hop kind of just correlated with it. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, it's something that the West Coast, I would love to say that it needed. Yeah. But for the most part, I can never take away what, West Coast did. We're infamous for the gangbang music, you know what I mean? And we're talking about gangs,
Gangster rap.
Yeah, we're the mecca for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But something about the East Coast has a special place in my heart.
Well, what I think is really interesting is how producers like Muggs and Alchemist, Evidence from Dilated People, right? How they, use kind of like that sampling culture and that digging for rare sounds. Yep. Right? And I'd even throw Kanye West because he's a Midwest dude, right? But he's lived out here and now he's wherever he wants to be basically. He's like in Wyoming, right? Yeah. Right? And so but he's I guess universal. But he was in New York in the beginning of his career, but then he came out here. Yeah. And so that original West Coast, I guess, even before G-Funk. Right? Yeah. Right before G-Funk. And we're in LA, which is, you think West Coast, you think LA, but there's also Bay Area. Yeah. Right?
Don't even get started about
that. They've got their own thing too, I mean, I grew up listening to Too Short.
Oh, who didn't?
Right?
Who didn't?
Right? I used to get in trouble for Too Short's records.
Yeah, Too Short was very, very explicit. Very, very explicit.
So,
very, very explicit.
That's another honorable mention because of the impact on my life. Like I have a Too Short era in my youth. You know what I'm saying? Like my young youth. Like there's a Too Short era. You know what I mean? And the 808s.
It was just different, man. I really think it was different for Too Short in that era too.
Yeah. Big impact. So, all right, man. So you want to go first? How you want to do it? Like for the top 5 that are alive.
I don't know. I know we're not pressed for time. We could just sound it off.
Yeah,
and let's pick each other's brain on why we chose those.
Yeah, I like that. We're not pressed for time. We're here. We're chilling. Yeah, let's do it. We're live. Doing top 5 Dead or Alive with my brother Mark One. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure being here.
And this is like so dope chopping it up with you, man. And you're like an encyclopedia of music. I really appreciate your whole everything, man. So
appreciate it.
So you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, how you want to do? You want to do how we were doing it before?
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, and you know, I got a number one. I actually have a number one.
I
but
don't have a number one.
Yeah, it's kind of unique to me. It's my favorite artist.
So I'll get one. I'll do two because one of them you already spoke on.
All right.
So Big L's on my list.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's one of my top 5. So
whoa,
for me it was just like lyricism. Yeah, he did have a dark era, but then it also correlated with me too. You know, what I mean? Like I was at that moment in my life where it spoke volume to me, and it was like, bro, like instead of listening to like heavy metal and like all that stuff and alternative rock, Big L was talking about it too. Yeah, but he was rapping it. Yeah, and I loved it, and it was something different. It wasn't. No one was speaking about that. Yeah, like the only time I ever heard anything so dark like that was from Biggie. You know, Ready to Die prepared me that like, yo, people are talking about committing suicide, talking about all this weird stuff that was
because hip hop was all about swagger,
getting money, selling dope, nice cars, you know,
and party music.
Yeah, and getting fresh. That's it. To talk about something that was way out of left field that no one talked about. Yeah, was different for me. Yeah, that's why like Big L is on there, and then the lyricism, the pen, the way he was able to manage things.
He was like really good. He was so witty. Yes, he was so witty with like his lyrics. You know, if you love Big L, I know you've heard this freestyle that he does at the radio station. Yeah, where he's like I'm a little tired. Yeah, right. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it's like,
one,
that's the joint.
That's the joint right there. So I think that's one we were spoken on. We gave him some time. But I think the other one for me would have to be DJ Quick. Ooh. So I think a lot of people forget about DJ Quick when they talk about West Coast music.
They do.
And I don't. I'm not gonna sit here. I'm a little upset. I'm hurt. Cause I'm like,
well, his first album.
Come on, man.
His first album, Quick as the Name. Yeah. Yeah.
You talking about banger after banger.
Yeah. And he produced that album.
And he produced it.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't hear of. People like, I mean, not as big, but people were doing.
Well, who else was doing that back then?
I don't remember.
Right? Because Kanye West has done it.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe there's a couple of artists that have done this. Like, there's a dude that he's well known enough that he tours, Odyssey, right, from DC, who's based in Brooklyn. He's a producer who raps and he's super nice with it. But the producer that's such a good producer that they could produce for like a whole group, the producers for themselves that's nice enough with the lyrics that is respected as a lyricist, that's a unicorn. Yes. And I think Quick, if it wasn't the first, I mean, Dr. Dre was doing it, but nobody's going to look at Dr. Dre as like a lyricist, right?
Nah, someone else wrote that. Yeah. I think we all kind of knew someone wrote that for
which is, you know, and he's Dr. Dre, you know what I'm saying? So, like, he could do whatever he wants.
Of course.
But who else was doing that before Quick?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But Quick, man, that was so much work, and I loved every single part of it. What took me off was his interludes. I forgot what's it called. It was like just jazz. Oh. And I was just like, what? Like, and this is in like the last second or third track before the album ended, and I'm just like, huh? Quick's interlude, something like that. I forgot the name of it, but every album he dropped, like leading up to that point, was just like a little jazz hit.
So So
I was like, bro, what?
DJ Quick had his first album. Quick is the Name, which is like the cover's cool. It's got like that monotone. And then he had the album that came after it that I think that the song America's Most Complete Artist is on it. But it's got the track that was the single, which was called Just Like Compton. Right? That was the big song. That was a dope album too. Then his third album, I think, was called Safe and Sound. Yeah,
that was the banger.
And that album, like from the second album to the third album, a lot of time, like, you know, like as an artist, more than the normal amount of time elapsed, because I think his studio got broken into.
Oh,
and all his stuff got stolen. That's why that album is called Safe and Sound, which also means safe and sound.
You blew my mind.
Right? Yeah.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
You know, I love the artist, but I like the stories.
Like the bag,
the
safe and sound, and he's safe and sound. But he went through some real tough adversity in life when because that's his livelihood, and everything got stolen.
Yeah.
You know, but then I lose track with DJ Quick after that third album.
Yeah.
I know he had that girl that he did that dope track to, where they sampled the Indian music, but then he got sued for that.
Yeah, I don't remember that one right there.
Yeah.
It goes, not only that, but then you touched on it. He was able to produce for like other artists as well.
Yeah.
And if you look at him now, like he's still producing stuff for like other artists right now.
So is he still active?
Yeah, he's still active, but I think he's doing more like sounds for people.
Yeah.
But like what I loved about him was not only that he had jazz in the middle of his album, then it was also the lyricism, the beats he chose. But then you can't forget, like, my man did work for Tupac.
Oh.
Like
he did production for him?
He did some production on it. I forgot the name of it. But I know it's off of America's Not. What's that one? It's Tupac's first album, Tupacalypse.
Okay.
He did 2 songs on there. I think it was 2 songs on there. And it's just like, man, like I didn't know that. Like when I was just looking up DJ Quick discography, and I'm like, why is there Tupac songs on here? I'm like, I don't get it.
Because he produced them.
And then I saw it. I'm like, oh, producer credit. Oh my god. And then come on, you can't go wrong with the Pimp era too. He was like really on it with Sugar Free.
Dude, he had the hair.
Come on.
Yeah.
That album too. That one slept on too.
Okay, I don't know that album.
That album was just amazing. So that's why he's on that list.
Yeah.
Because not only that he needs more respect on his name, but he's done so much.
Yeah.
And the sound was so diverse. Because he could talk about gang music.
Yeah.
But tells you, I'm not a gangster.
Yeah.
And that one song, I'm not a gangster.
Yeah.
That's that one song off that one album we're just talking about right now. Where he's like, as the what's it called? I forgot the name of how the beat goes, but like, that's kind of like the after sound. He's like, DJ Quick, you a gangster? He's like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. But he's like giving you reasons why he's not a gangster. Yeah. And he talks about his beef with MC8. Yeah. And how they pull up to the club and how he, hey bro, like I'm just doing my thing. You know? But I love that he was also a storyteller. Yeah. In his music, and I'm a sucker for that. Yeah. To be honest, I'm a sucker for someone that could paint me a picture while having good lyricism and also with a good beat, and just packaged together, put a nice bow tie, gave it a kiss, threw some holy water on it, and then like, all right, we're done. Yeah, and I love that you picked DJ Quick because I remember the impact he had on his first album. I had a friend growing up named Tony Norton who put me on to DJ Quick. When on his first album, he's like, nah, you gotta check this dude out. And I checked him out, and I was like, he was different. Yeah. And he was really good. He was really dope. But he was from LA. And I really liked him. And what I love about him as a pick also is that he's an uncommon pick. And I think that that's cool because what it's about really is like, I don't care what the Grammy says, and I don't care what like some other show says, and I don't care. It's like, who do you listen to in your car? Who, like, if that song comes on, you're like, whoa, don't change that. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I think that's where it really stands out the most, and I think that's why this is happening. Yeah. There's an appreciation for it. Don't get me wrong. I would love for all my artists to get, you know, that Grammy. Of course, it's a big body of work. You want those trophies. Yeah. Of course. But to those artists, you will always remain a trophy in my car. That's how I look at it as. You are a trophy in my car because, like you said, there's some tracks you like, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't skip that track. You got to listen to it. This is the joint, and like listen to the subtlety right here and like that vibe. Of course. All right, so I have an artist I think that doesn't get a lot of credit also that's in my top 5. He's well known, but I don't hear him mentioned in people's top 5. Cool G Rap. Oh. Yeah. I have such an appreciation for, I think that he's the inventor
of what they refer to as the multisyllabic, right? Where like they're rhyming rhymes within rhymes within rhymes.
Oh,
right?
that's the best.
And like every word is like it's almost like you're like, oh my gosh, he like rhymed this with this, and then he brought that rhyme back from this other word that he said like one bar ago. And he's and then he has like
his delivery.
His delivery, he raps kind of fast at times too, but he has a little bit of a speech impediment, right? Where it's like some sort of something. And those Method Man has something these dudes that like have taken like a little lisp or a little too much saliva and they make it part of their flow. It just sounds so cool, right? It's like a dude from so G-Rap, I think it's slept on. I think that he's a person that when he comes on, like if I could do a feature with somebody, it'd be G-Rap. Yeah. Like he's like a for real featuring, not like I buy a verse. Like we sit in the studio, vibe out, and he writes a G-Rap verse. Yeah. Like, dude, that would be like one of the moments of my life. Like I'd be like forever.
Yeah. Right? I like that he was gory too. If you do get the chance, listen to it. He did a collaboration album with this other underground artist, but
Necro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know Necro's not for the people, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, he's,
it's very gory when he talks about it, you know what I mean?
But he was a necessary skew, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we needed something like gore rap. We needed something that was different, but I think the number one, I forgot the name of Brutality, I think. It was talking about like how to get rid of a body. And I was like, that was my introduction to Necro, and I was like, what am I listening to? This dude's talking about how to chop up a body, how to disinfect it so it doesn't smell through these garbage bags.
Right. It wasn't because like Eminem talks crazy stuff.
Of course.
No, this dude was seriously talking about it.
No, he was telling you how to get rid of it. He'll tell you, hey, keep an eye on the trash cans. Throw it out the night before. It's a double bag it. Who's going to open it, And you're sitting there, you're like...
He's seriously talking about this.
They're like, well, not only that, but then a part of me was like, hey, he ain't lying.
Right.
He's dead serious. I wouldn't open a double bag if I was homeless. Like, I read it.
Right.
But that album right there was wild. That one's a good one, too. I think a lot of people need to hear that one if you want a good introduction.
I think the story with that goes that they got together and started working, and the G-Rap was so prolific that they basically, like, he said, let's do a song or two. Yeah. And then they did 8. And then they said, well, let's just do 4 more. Just drop an album. Yeah.
I think that Vlad interview was pretty interesting because you see Cool G-Rap and Necro both in binks, you know what I mean? Just sitting there like all like really, because the album was Teflon Don, right? Like it was really like some Italian mobster stuff.
Is that the name of the album?
Yeah, I think
Teflon
Dons. Yeah. Okay. So it's you literally see them and they're both like, with these black glasses, black minks, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a good album. So for Cool G-Rap, special place.
Man, that's what's up. Yeah, I love Cool G-Rap. And he's part of the Juice Crew. Which is this is like, back late 80s, early 90s. This crew was a New York crew that is, and I don't remember everybody, but this is like Big Daddy Kane, Cool G-Rap, Master Ace, Biz Markie. Wow. And Biz Markie was the star. Right? And this is, and rest in peace, Biz Markie. Yeah. But he had all the like radio songs, and then they all had their moment. They all had their moments. But then Big Daddy Kane came and had like this wave. And G-Rap is from that crew. Yeah. And I don't remember where they were from. I feel like they were probably from Brooklyn. I think Big Daddy Kane's from Brooklyn. So all right. So
who's the next one? I gave
G-Rap.
you 2.
Yeah. So G-Rap. All right. So I'm going to give you another one that everybody knows. I also think that he's not on a lot of people's top 5. But, like, I just love... he has so many classics, and I love his sound. And his energy and Busta Rhymes.
He don't get a lot of love.
He does not get love.
Bro.
He does not get love.
He does not get
Shout
love.
out Busta Rhymes.
For real.
He does not get love.
I saw that video where Tyler, the creator, gave him his flowers.
Yeah.
Because he's dropped so much music, bro.
And it's so amazing. It's so many classics.
Yeah. I forgot who. I saw this interview once where they spoke to him that, like, yo, you're rapping too fast. I need you to slow it down. I think it was Tim. I think Timbaland. I think it was him, but I couldn't pinpoint that one. But
yeah,
for sure, how fast he rapped, that was one.
Yeah.
Two, the sound he was able to do.
Yes.
Like, he was able to, like, have that low pitched voice because he has, like, that really dark, like, grown ass man voice. Versus like some other the rappers, they kind of have like a lighter voice.
Well, he's got that Jamaican vibe because I think somebody in his, he might be like both his parents, but he's got Jamaican,
of course,
right? And you know, the Jamaican influence and New York hip hop have a special. They've got a special thing where like KRS-One is influenced by them. Kool Herc, that whole. You know, sound like getting the sound systems in the park. That's a Jamaican thing, right? This is the influence, the impact of Jamaican culture on the origins of hip hop, and then later, like Biggie's mom, Biggie Small's mom is like Jamaican, right? So like the Jamaican, you know how there's like waves of immigration that come to different regions, right? So like I'm from the DC area. And the largest group of Latinos in the DC area are Salvadorians, right? And the second largest group are Peruvians.
Whoa.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, they're big communities. Like, you want to get some bomb ceviche? Go to DC, right? Go to DC. Like, if you want like some bomb pupusas, go to DC. I think the DC might have the second largest, if not the first.
Yeah.
Largest Salvadorian community outside of LA. But we're next door to El Salvador here.
Yeah.
Right? How they make it the DC? And that's just the way.
So you got me like that.
Yeah. You're like, what?
DC at all places? Like,
young man, DC. Like, if you from DC, you know that El Salvador's in the house. You know Peru's in the house. And I'm gonna hit you with a third. The third largest community of Latinos in the DMV are Bolivians. And it's just the way, and there's reasons why, right?
Yeah.
But it's just the way the immigration happens because of sometimes political reasons, sometimes economic reasons, where like a country's, Venezuela's going through it right now. So the amount of Venezuelans and Colombians moving specifically to Florida and Miami, it's like, so 20 years from now, there could be like young Venezuelan Americans doing their show in Miami, like what we're doing right now. So it's just the way it happens. That happened with Jamaicans in New York and had a massive impact on hip hop. So Busta Rhymes has that. Busta Rhymes, I think, gets slept on a lot. I think lyrically he's there. He can do the speed rap thing, but the presence he has on stage is incredible.
Yeah. I gotta look at the card.
All right, my bro. Tell me who you think. We tap into this water right here.
For sure.
All right, so you got, so let's do a recap, right? Who you got so far?
It was DJ Quick and Big L.
All right.
I think the third one, it's a little bit of both. So also what I wanted to do too on my top 5, just kind of go back to the criteria of it. I did 2 East Coast, I did 2 West Coast, and then obviously the fifth one is the West Coast. So
okay.
So I'm gonna hit you with the West Coast right now. Back to West Coast, Snoop Dogg.
All right, yeah.
I'm sorry. I just
Uncle Snoop.
I can't pass it up. It's so hard. Like when we talked about this, I was getting excited because Dogfather, came back out.
They did this. The fact that he owns Death Row Records, now
he put it back on the platform.
That's amazing.
But that Dogfather album did crazy. Like, look, everybody like Doggy Style. Everybody does, and I'm not taking nothing away from it.
Right.
But before that, Dogfather was crazy because he took so much influence from Gap Band, and if you know, Gap Band with Charlie Wilson had a lot of influence because that was right before like he was hanging around with a lot of Tupac, and Tupac was resetting his image, and that's when he was able to change it. And I know Snoop Dogg talks about that, how like Tupac tells Snoop like, yo, you a pimp, dress like it, act like it, and that's what that was. That album, Dogfather, was really kind of
And that's when he had like the
long hair. That's the precursor before Doggy Style. So this is more album more about like pimping, but also like getting fly, feeling fly. You know what I mean? So this is that album right there, a special place in my heart. I lost my marbles when I got it back on Spotify. I was like, yes, I got it on CD.
Because he pulled everything. He pulled like a lot of the Death Row catalog,
of course,
off.
Yeah, and then even then, like if you talk about his earlier stuff, like or I'm talking about later stuff, Blue Carpet Treatment. Oh my God, that album was crazy good. Yeah. I was just like, this is what like maybe 2008, 2010, and still sounding like he was back then.
Right.
Have similar sound but new beats was like, oh, he really got it. He really got it.
And then he's got the era where he goes to No Limit.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he did a few albums there.
Yeah.
Right? He did, because he got off of Death Row, went over to, and I think he was like, you know, kind of like wanted to get away for a little bit.
Of course.
And does some projects out there. He may be like one of the most relevant hip hop personalities.
Of course.
Right now.
1000%.
Right? And he gets the bag everywhere.
Oh yeah. Everywhere.
Have you seen the things where like they show all these commercials like outside the US? Like he's getting the bag in Australia, in India, and different places in Asia.
1000%.
Like he's in all these like random commercials.
I mean,
he's known everywhere.
Yeah, he's a household name at this point. And that's wild to say. But one thing I liked about him, that how diverse he was able to do it.
Yeah.
Because he did that one joint collab with Pharrell, and I think it's called Bush. And that album was crazy, like how he was able to do like funk music.
Yeah.
And then go off and do Rastafari music. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't.
Because he did that Snoop Lion.
Snoop Lion. It wasn't the best.
I just remember vaguely from them, and then he like quit cannabis.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
And then,
you know, he did his own thing. But I think that one kind of gets overlooked, same way how we overlook Lil Wayne's rock album. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that Lil Wayne. But
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so he did that too.
Was it all right? Nah. We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about it. Same reason we don't talk about Snoop Lion, we don't talk about that album. But it's so good music. But it showed that he was still so diverse. And even that he did one with Banda music. There's one. Snoop. He did one with
he did a track with Banda?
Yeah. And that was pretty wild. It was on the radio too. I forgot. I think I might be butchering the Banda. I don't know what genre it is.
Well,
but you know, Snoop messes with the Mexican community heavy.
Yeah.
Well, he grew up in Long Beach, so you know it's literally
that's his community. That's his community.
So, you know, he really messes with it heavy. So I think that track was just a no-brainer. So
another interesting thing about Snoop is, remember that dude, the Korean rapper that had the Gangnam Style? Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
And so that dude's a rapper, right? And like, you know, maybe it doesn't sound like rap music to us, and he's rapping in Korean, so we don't really understand the lyrics. And it's really kind of like, maybe like electronic heavy. But like, that dude wound up doing like that song blows up.
Yeah.
And he like is like the first person to ever get like 1 billion views on YouTube and stuff. So the first featuring he does is with Snoop. That's how global Snoop is. I mean, it's like basically like anywhere in the world, if you do anything hip hop related, as soon as you get the bag, you get Snoop.
Of course.
And props to Snoop, because Snoop will show up.
Yeah.
He's not gonna say no.
If the bag is right, though.
If the bag is right.
If the bag is right, he'll show up.
Yeah. So his nickname used to be Getting Money Snoop, because he gets the bag.
He really is.
He's paid. Well, he's heavy in the crypto world too.
Yeah, that too.
He owns like, you know, when Bored Apes, like, I mean, I'm sure there's still like a massive thing, but when they were like really going crazy, he had all these, and then he was like, there was like, do you?
No.
Oh yeah. He said he will. Well, he was gonna make Death Row like the first Web3 record label, and I'm just like remembering stuff, so I'm not sure where things are right now. But there was this Twitter account. There was the name of like in the Renaissance, there were like these different families that were basically the patrons of the arts. And there were various, it was like a family like the Medicis. Mm-hmm. And the Medicis, there were several Medicis. It's like a last name, like Perez. So there's a guy that's one of the people that's lesser known, something Medici. Yeah. So there was an account on Twitter that was that person, and he had like an avatar or something. But that person owned all of these different NFTs. Yeah. And was heavy in the NFT game and all that. Turns out that it was Snoop, and there was a ghost account that Snoop had. Snoop had all these NFTs and crypto. The dude is
he's everywhere.
And his team, right? Because you can't do that all alone.
Nah.
He's got good people around him. He's got the right people around him.
Yeah.
So salute to Snoop and his team. All right. So I said I named G-Rap, and I said Busta Rhymes, and I'm gonna go to somebody that I think is falling off of people's lists, but forever was on people's lists. But for some reason, and maybe it's because his latter catalog is not, I guess, as classic as his classic.
Okay.
Rakim.
That's
the GOAT. That's the guy.
That's what I say. Like, he's your rapper's favorite rapper. You know?
Yeah, I mean Rakim. I think Rakim has fallen off. Like, when you hear people's top 5, most of the time, I think in the modern era, he's edged out and not included anymore because, M, Wayne, newer people, Wayne, Jay, Kanye, like they take these slots, and Rakim, I think, his early catalog, Eric B. and Rakim, like that era he changes hip hop. He changes hip hop. Hip hop goes from like walking down the street today and I saw this little lady. Yeah. And it goes from that to like to like complex rhymes and concepts, Rakim changes hip hop. And you got that whole era of Eric B. and Rakim. And then he kind of disappears for a period of time, connects with Dr. Dre. And that project never comes out.
It's like the Detox album.
It's like the Detox album. It's like Dre and Dr. Dre knows. I mean, he's a tastemaker.
Yeah.
M, Snoop, Kendrick, right? He's a tastemaker.
Yeah.
Cube, Eazy-E, he's a tastemaker, right? So the fact that he selected Busta Rhymes, that he selected Rakim as like these are artists I want to work with and produce, but he's a perfectionist, and I think that ultimately, it didn't work out.
Of course.
Imagine. Well, and also as a tastemaker, Dre, Nas.
Yeah.
Right?
That was a pretty single too.
Yeah.
No
Rakim's later work, up until he drops, I think it's called The 18th Letter.
Okay.
That album was dope. It had classic production by Premier. That's a good album. It's a solid album, but it didn't do numbers. It didn't necessarily have, but it was good rhymes on good beats. It was like a classic.
Yeah, you said Primo, so.
Yeah. Then he kind of falls off the map a little bit, I think, right? At least in the limelight, people hearing about it, seeing him doing things. But for his catalog and his impact and how he changed hip hop forever and ever. Yeah. And he basically, I think, is the inventor of the style of hip hop that I like, right? Which is the lyrical over boom bap beats, the monotone, right? It doesn't have to be monotone. Busta Rhymes is on my list, but his delivery of like basically a confident, masculine, strong, intelligent man. Rakim did that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So Rakim.
Okay. Can't go wrong with that.
Can't go wrong. So I got 3. So you're on your 4.
So I'm on 4. I guess my 4 and 5, because like I said, the criteria was the flow, what it did to my life.
Yeah.
And I think it's everybody's top 5 and this is kind of where I wanted to stray away so bad, but every time you said top five, the whole promotion leading up to it,
Yeah.
I couldn't take them off. There was just who's filling that slot, and it's Tupac and Big.
Woo!
I'm sorry, like you can't take those off. They're forever a staple for me.
Yes.
For me.
Yes.
I'll preface that it's for
Absolutely.
me. For me. Ready to Die, Life After Death. You're talking about Tupacalypse. You're talking about what's it called? I forgot his second album.
Oh yeah, that was my favorite one. Against
All
All
Eyes
Odds.
on Against All Odds.
Against All Odds.
World, what's it called? All Eyes on Me.
Yep.
Like you talking about bangers after bangers. So it's like for me, what both of them did outside of the beef, created
I think that the beef is important to mention. I mean,
it pushed them. It pushed both of them.
Pushed both of them. It changed. I think it had an impact. It's always interesting when something's so massive that it goes outside of hip hop.
Yeah.
Right. And Tupac and Big did that with their rivalry. And what's really interesting is that in a lot of ways it's almost like Shakespearean because they were friends.
Yeah.
Right? They were homies.
They were homies, and then the infamous freestyle that they did together.
Yeah.
And you know what's even more crazy about that? Is that DJ Quick was in the room too.
No!
Yeah, he talks about that on his, I think, Vlad interview. But like, even then, that's for them. Come on, baby, can't you see? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Come on, man. It's just bangers after bangers. I can't take them off. The projects are all good, and it just has so much depth to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, The What is my favorite song.
Yeah.
And people don't even know about that song.
Oh, yeah,
Some people don't even they overlook it.
You're talking about The What, which is Method Man and Biggie.
Yes.
Yeah, that song is.
And that
that's the beat, the song, Method Man,
and the way
flow.
they just intertwine, they just going like this, dipping out.
And it's Biggie's first album.
Yep.
And the Wu-Tang Clan ruled the world when that album comes out. And the fact that Biggie could flow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if this is like, it almost feels blasphemous to say this, but he could flow better than any other Wu member with Method Man on that particular track. I'm just saying. Yeah. On that track.
You can't get Ghostface on that one. I'm sorry, Ghostface delivery, you can't hear Raekwon on that, you know what I mean?
It's just because, Biggie had like that big guy voice.
Of course.
That goes so good with Method Man's,
He had a raunchy voice, man, a good raunchy, it's all the blunts, you know what I'm saying? But,
absolutely, it was smoky.
Yeah, so in that delivery, that whole track is you can't get it. I can't get it out. And then for Tupac, it would be Checkout Time. Like people don't know about that one.
I don't know that track.
That track
what is that?
I forget who's on it. But I think that one's on All Eyes on Me. I think it was All Eyes on Me. That song is crazy. Like
I'm gonna go check
because that's a DJ
Checkout
Quick
Line.
one. Yeah, it's Checkout Time. Yeah,
Checkout Time. All right,
yeah,
let's check that joint out.
And I think that's a quick one. And that one you can hear it. It's all West Coast heavily, influenced. And I think Tupac ain't from LA. But
Tupac's from Baltimore.
Yeah, he's from Baltimore.
And then he grew up in Oakland.
Yep.
Right?
So
and then moved to LA.
And then moved to LA,
right.
Of course, So with that understanding, so someone to pick up and really put down yo, I'm from here. I may grew up, born here,
right.
But I'm repping LA.
This is my home.
Yeah, and then come on, man, California. There's so many back to backs where it's for Tupac, and then it goes back to Biggie too. It's like they have so much, and then it's a classic. It's never going anywhere. My cousins that are younger than me they know who Tupac is. They know who Biggie Small is, and it's going on to generation. Yeah. And it's so much work and depth that it's hard to move. They really are the sauce for a lot of people.
What I find, and I wish that there was there probably is. If anybody knows about it, put me onto it. Tupac's work ethic. Yeah. And the catalog I think he was 26 when he passed away.
Yeah, I believe so.
26, dude. He had I don't know how many albums worth of material. And he was releasing basically after he passed away, rest in peace, Tupac.
Of course.
After he passed away, everybody who was, the top hip hop artists, top urban music artists, still had to compete against Tupac's record sales.
Of course.
For 5 to 10 years, because he had such a recorded catalog.
Yep.
There was always a new Tupac album dropping.
Yep.
For at least 5 years after that.
Of course.
I think maybe even more,
Yeah.
Like, truly the Tupac box set of his entire discography must be massive. I don't even know if it exists. Somebody should put that together.
Yeah, for real.
I don't know where all the rights and who owns what.
Yeah.
But he created.
He's on a lot.
Dude, he did. So I think that was really impressive. And then I'm big into movies.
Word.
I got a massive movie collection. I still like I love physical media, especially in movies. And at one point in time, I had like the classics Above the Rim, Juice, all the classic Tupac movies. But then there's other ones that's like less known, gang related, and he's got the joint with I can't remember it right now, but he had about 8 movies. Yeah. And I went out and got all of them. He had Poetic Justice with physical media. I needed the entire Tupac, filmography.
That's what's up.
Right? So I got them at the crib. And the fact that he did that, and he did a catalog by 26 that was released for another 5 to 10 years with constant new material after he passed.
Yeah.
I think it's so unique. And all artists, like outside of hip hop, like all time, find another person. I'd be curious just to know. Find another person, who's done that.
Yeah. No one's done that.
Nobody's done that. So
it's on top of the dome, no.
I can't think of anybody in rock, in jazz, in movies, and you go like deeper into history, who created that volume of work by that age and then left us so early. Yeah. Spectacular human being. I love his music. I used to listen to it's Me Against the World. It's not against all that. It's Me Against the World. Yeah. That's the name of that album. That album is right before everything went down and he got locked up and he went to death row and All Eyes on Me. It's before that happened. And I used to listen to that album heavy. But Biggie's in my top 5.
Word.
Yeah. So Biggie, he's going to be my 4. Biggie's in my top 5. I think that his Ready to Die album is so spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
Machine Gun Funk.
Oh my God.
Right.
You bring classics.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable was another one too.
That track. And then I think that his second album, and what's so crazy about him is that he had Ready to Die, and then his second album is Life After Death.
Yep. And
he's no longer with us.
Yep.
And that's something like when I talk to my daughter and stuff, and I'm geeking out on hip hop, and they don't listen to hip hop. All my girls they play piano and they listen to like music where people sing and play instruments. Yeah. And I'm a hip hop head. And I drop Game on him, and I'm like, nah, you don't understand. Like this dude had this impact on culture. And like when he came out, like he dropped this album, and like all these people you hear about, and like Puff Daddy and all these artists, this was the artist that like set up that whole record label. And when he came out, this album was such a classic album, and it was called Ready to Die. And then he died, but had recorded the album called Life After Death. Yeah. Which is a double album. Yeah. Which is a dope album also.
Of course.
So he's in there.
There's a little backstory behind that too. Apparently, Ready to Die was his outgoing from Bad Boy, and Life After Death was supposed to be his own label. I forgot where I saw this at, but someone broke it down because that's where the Big L and him, Big, were supposed to drop an album together, but it was going to be under his record label.
Okay, so how does Jay-Z mix into that? Because they were supposed to have.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. The Big and Jay-Z. I'm sorry. It wasn't Big L. It was Big and Jay-Z.
Oh, okay. Because I know that they had it was called The Syndicate.
Yeah.
The Syndicate, right? Mm-hmm. So the Syndicate's supposed to be Jay-Z and Biggie Smalls together.
Yep.
Maybe on Rockefeller? Or maybe their own thing.
It was supposed to, from what I remember hearing from this interview, they described it as Ready to Die, Laugh After Death was supposed to be 2 projects under his new label. Apparently, he wanted to create his own label. So I was like,
We'll leave that right there.
We'll leave it there. I don't want to get into conspiracies about this or that. But from what I know, from what I'm understanding, is that was the whole process of that album.
So I got one left.
Handle it.
Right?
Let's see what we got.
All right. And it's actually my number one. So this is my number one. This is my favorite rapper.
All right, let's go.
I think that this is the God MC. I think what I love so much about this artist is you know when somebody like you ever see like soccer players or like athletes, and part about what's so amazing about the most elite in their field is that it's almost effortless for them. Mm-hmm. This artist gives me that feeling. I love his whole style. I love the delivery. I love the vocal tone. I love the attitude. I love the lyrics. And I love the consistency, especially as of late. And so my favorite artist, my number one in my top 5 that are alive is Nas. And yeah, and so I know Nas is an artist that he's like on a lot of people's lists.
But he's not number 1 on people's lists.
He's not number 1. He's not number 1 on people. That's a really good point. Yeah. I think it's always often Jay, Biggie, Pac, Wayne, and Nas.
Yeah, and then Nas.
Right. And then you hear like Nas somewhere in there,
so
right?
Nas, I always felt like he was somebody's honorable mention. It really was never, like I said, a top 1.
Yeah.
Because even, like you said, the progress of work and how he's so consistent. Like the King's Dead section, the stuff he's doing with Hit Boy. Yeah. It is like a match made in heaven. And the body of work they're able to put together. Yeah. And then still hold that depth. I think that's what it is for me too, for Nas. Yeah. To still have depth and then still be lyrical and still tell you a story. And then, now at this point, he's an old cat in the game. Yeah. And still be around.
I almost feel like he's in a sense kind of like, I don't know if I'd say creating, but he's participating in something that maybe doesn't have a name. Maybe you'd call it like golden era rap or, like old man rap or something. I don't know because see, like hip hop is real interesting because like when you look at rock and roll is so big. Yeah. Right? That like you've got, what you would call classic, and you got what you call grunge, and you got what you'd call, pop, right? And like stuff like, then you've got like, heavier stuff, right? Heavy metal and thrash and you've got like so much rock. And hip hop is like that now.
Of course. Right?
Where it's like so, one of the members of De La Soul just passed recently, right? Yeah. And so like think about that whole native tongues, De La. So hip hop is so intricate now. And Nas is out here today with Hit Boy putting in work.
Good work.
Good work. King's Disease 1, 2, 3, and the album Magic. He's dropped those 4 albums like in the last 3 years. Yeah. His most prolific era is today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like in regards to volume of what he's doing, for sure. Right? And I like what he's talking about because he's talking about like an older man, like an older statesman. Yeah. He's been in wars. He's from Queensbridge. Mm-hmm. He was at the places with the people. He was with Pac. He was with Biggie. Yeah. He had to beef with Jay. You know what I'm saying? Like he's here and he's still putting out this body of work.
Yeah.
That's my favorite artist of all time. That's my number one, top 5 that are.
And that's a good way to wrap it right there.
That
because
is.
that's, like I said, the stuff that he's doing with Hit Boy, I felt like it's still from first album. Like I feel like that delivery is still on his knapsack and just running through it. And then now he just got a newer beat, but he's still talking about the same thing. But at a level now where it's like, he ain't talking about shooting guns anymore, robbing people. It's more about like, man, I'm at a corner store that I own now, sipping orange juice.
Right.
This is a vibe for me now.
Trying to drop game on the young kids out here.
How to fix your mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How to project yourself as a man, and then how to navigate through the hip hop world,
Yeah.
So I think that one right there threw me off, but
Did it throw you?
it threw me off because I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting someone underground, but
Yeah.
someone to say Nas.
He's kind of underground though. I mean, he's well known.
He's well known,
but I don't know that Nas has had the commercial success and hits of an M, of a J, of a Wayne, of a Kanye. He's had like a couple of songs that people are like, "If I rule the world," people know that. You know what I'm saying?
Got myself a gun.
Yeah, exactly. But he hasn't had that level of commercial hip hop songs because he's from Queensbridge. You know what I'm saying? He keeps it gully.
About it.
So, my brother, thank you for doing this first episode with me.
You already know.
Top 5 that are alive. My boy Mark
Let's
One.
go.
Thank you all for everybody who listened now and from the beginning throughout the whole thing. Thanks so much. The Cristopolis Show. Peace.